Hi, Colt. I like this first drawing of yours. It has the look of a drawing that's made from observation. It seems like it's a self-portrait, you looking at yourself over your drawing board, for instance. The hair is handled in a really nice way. And I like the exaggerated perspective with the ears. They look very petite, but yet they are far back, so I think that's believable. You know, I think you can finesse the charcoal a little more. Get that kneaded eraser out and make a fine point with it to get detail in the beard, to get the nuances in the eyes, the mouth. Notice how there's a strong sense of outline there. Also, I'm taking a look at the neck, and there seems to be a shadow that's very strong, and then suddenly we have no shadow at all on the shirt. Now, looking at the second drawing, this is meant to be the longer work with greater care taken. In fact, it says that this drawing should take several hours to complete, and while there are lovely qualities here, it doesn't seem as fleshed out. Brittany, nice to see your work. You know, the one that impresses me most is the second version of assignment 2, because I get a strong sense for your close observation of the shape of the head. For instance, how the cheekbones swell out just a tad round the ear in the head's shape. I also enjoy seeing how you've fitted this head on a neck and shoulders. The shoulders may be a touch narrow. That can be hard to sort out unless your paper's large enough for you to sketch the full width there. I like the way you're seeing shadow under the brows and the careful shape for the nose. I want you to work more on letting the face be built from areas of shadow, and sometimes what helps that most is having strong lighting or an evident light source with cast shadows. With the mouth, I want you to take a look at what Betty Edwards has to say, because that's going to be built of shapes of shadow too. Right now it's all outline. Joe, thanks for submitting a strong early draft with assignment 2. I see that there are a few changes you've made, and generally this drawing's better. Let's take a look at the slope of the shoulders. I don't think that's quite right yet, but it's close. Maybe make a couple of drawings, thumbnails on scratch paper, and try to work that out, minus hair. Look for some suggestion of the right side of the neck, and beware that area there to the right of the face and the neck not all be swallowed up with a strong dark. Look for nuances and pull out some different values there, perhaps with a small eraser on the end of a pencil. Now, your second drawing, how beautiful. There's so much expression in the eyes, and I like the way that you rendered the teeth too, with just enough information that we're not overwhelmed with a, like a toothy grin. But I feel as though some of the disadvantages of graphite have affected you here, and that the graphite drawing is less easy to revise. It seems as though you could really use some lighter values in the hair close to the head. It goes dark real fast, and we don't see suggestions of the shoulders. So I'd suggest revisiting this drawing. I'd be pleased to see it again. Hi, Matt. Well, with your assignment 2, this work has a strong look of a photo. And if you take a look at what I was writing in the drafts review, one of the benefits of drawing from the post model is binocular vision. In other words, you're looking with 2 eyes. There's a stereoscopic effect. When you rely on a photo, even a reference photo, where you may also be looking at the mirror at the same time, a photo flattens the image. There's just one eye, so to speak. The lens, it's monocular. It flattens the image a touch. Also, there's a certain distortion to this, where it looks as though a camera, for instance, might have been held a little bit above your head, making the top of your head seem sort of wide. When I was an art student, I did crazy things like I tacked a mirror to the underside of a shelf, and I made a drawing of myself looking up at that mirror. So I know all sorts of things are possible. Another matter is that while I've seen a lot of charcoal drawings in my day, there's a certain quality to the blending here that seems unusual, and it makes me want to see this drawing in person. I want to see how you did it, so I'm going to ask you to send it in. Hi, Anthony. I made some remarks to you about this second drawing, and I also referred to the earlier one in assignment s109. So I'd like you to take a look there where there are even some links for you. It seems to me that the combination you're using is newsprint and vine, and that is a good one. However, I need you to push the drawing a little further by addition of some true blacks applied with compressed charcoal or even black contact crayon. And using those with confidence takes a little practice. Also, I might suggest a heavier paper. Katie, how lovely to see this revision of your assignment too. Um, Great sensitivity in the way that you've drawn the nose and the area below the nose, above the mouth, and there are marbles to be seen in the eyes too. I would suggest that the neck and shoulders that fit well on the first version seem too big and maybe too cursory for the drawing as it stands now. You might like to revise that a touch, and I'd be glad to see what you've done with it in future if you care to show me. Now, the drawing of the baby, how very dear. I like that closed eye on the left, and I'm looking at the strong shadow on the cheek on the opposite side, and I'm thinking maybe the shadow around that left side eye could be as strong. I'm wondering if this baby's nose is perhaps a touch small in the drawing. Giovanni, I want to encourage you to use the side of your charcoal to swipe on areas of value. Look at this, and I love the eyes. The sensitivity there is very beautiful. I looked at the hair, and it seems drawn aptly, but look at how dark the hair is. Nothing else in the entire drawing stands out as being nearly so dark as the hair, and I think you shortchange what could be a really powerful image by being a little timid with your medium. Now, we've seen this other drawing before, and it seems as though it was made from a photo. It fits this assignment quite well. It might be that you can take a look at what LaShawn has done with hair for some ideas on how to develop the hair a little more. I know there's so much hair to draw here, it could be bewildering. Sean, I'm admiring this drawing for assignment 2 in particular. Seems as though there's an evolution in your style since last week, and I can see, for instance, a certain solidity to the head. I like the way the ear is fastened on, its position and perspective, and the neck behind it. It is rather odd to see the near side of the face obscured in this manner. It makes me think of Francis Bacon, who did that also in his later work. You can see a couple of images of his. The one on the left is a self-portrait in early work, and then a later work, and there he is in his studio. He was notoriously messy. I like the suggestion of a gleam on the lower lip and the light on the left side of the neck. I'm feeling like you've got a strong outline around the eye, and be wary of that. With your second drawing, what a lovely mouth, but there's a lot of stylization elsewhere. LaShawn, this is a sensitively drawn self-portrait. I didn't mention before, but the neck is usually petite, which gives the idea that you are straining or looking hard in the mirror, looking closely. I enjoy that. Now, let's see. You definitely were thinking about what I was saying about adding texture or detail or lighter values to the hair. I would liken hair to drawing foliage on a tree, and one of my professors said about that, draw the leaves, only a few in detail. Essentially, detail 1 leaf, 2 leaves, 3 leaves, and let the rest be in a bunch, etc. So leave it to the viewer's imagination to imagine every strand of hair. The main thing here, values-wise, is to be sure that there are shapes of value so that the value doesn't appear to be uniform. Now, this drawing of your daughter is very dear, and if I said anything about that, it might be to check the chin. Check the chin and the forehead. It could be that the chin's a little too long and the forehead's just a little too short. Naja, I see a sense of understanding the structure of the nose here in this first drawing, and also I see great possibilities for hair with your style. In this drawing, the neck is too long, and you're focusing on features more than the landscape of the face. The second drawing is nice, but ooh, what a difficult pose. I'd say choose something without arms.